I feel like I told you this earlier today. I know I picked Louisville last week to win, and I lost that game over Kentucky. I think you did too. But, man, I got to tell you, I hate this style of matchup for Florida State right now. I hate it. It is arguably one of the worst matchups they can have. Can I tell you why? Because I don't think that Tate Rodemaker is going to be able to throw them to a win, like be able to just dot dudes up. I don't think that that can happen. What I do think that they're going to try to do is with Trey Benson, they're going to try to run the football. But, Joe, Louisville is elite against the run. I shouldn't say elite. They are really – that's a bad word by me.
Actually, I disagree with that.
Joe, they're 11th in the country against the run.
What happened last week when they played Kentucky?
I don't care about what they did last week. I don't care. You know why? Because I also saw Auburn get beat by New Mexico State, and then the week after that, literally the week after, they're a play away from beating what could be the SEC champ.
I understand that.
Dude, they overachieved, and they had 3 bad turnovers. But that's not even the side of the ball that lost them the game. It's not. The offense for Louisville last week had 3 turnovers and then a turnover on down, and that's what lost them the football game. It was not what they were doing defensively. They broke there at the end, and they couldn't contain. They couldn't do anything right. So I look at this game and say, look, if Tate Rodemaker plays it just like he did last week against what I'm going to tell you, Joe, is a better defense, they could be in trouble.
Blake, I think that last week, I understand that rivalry weekends are crazy. The outcomes,
no
the performance, it's very crazy. But we can't just ignore what happens in these games, because to me, it's very telling of how a team steps up to the plate, one, when their back is up against the wall, but in big-time games when they need to get wins. Louisville had a long shot to get into the playoff, but it was still somewhat on the table. There was some capability, maybe some type of discussion that if they ran the table, they dominated Florida State in the ACC Championship game, who knows? But they faltered. They failed. And I get what you're saying, that their offense didn't step up to the plate on a number of drives and they had turnovers. They still scored 31 points. This is not an offense that's been averaging 40-plus points. This is not one of the top 15, top 20 offense in the country. They're a good offense. Jawar Jordan, Jamari Thrash have been fantastic for this offense. Jack Plummer has played up and down, but he's played consistently good. I pay close attention to the fact that they forced multiple turnovers and still lost this football game. At the end of the game, Devin Leary threw one of the worst interceptions that I have ever seen all season long, which epitomized how god-awful Kentucky was offensively in that game. And Louisville still found a way to lose because they could not stop the rushing game, and they also could not get stops in important spots when they needed. You know what it also tells me? Wait, if Devin Leary turned the ball over the way that he did and they still won, tells me that if Tate Rodemaker comes out, plays a shaky game the same way he did against Florida, they can still find ways to win, and that Trey Benson can help carry them to a victory if Tate Rodemaker doesn't step up to the plate.
You miss one massive thing. Can I tell you what it is?
What?
Devin Leary dropping absolute dimes in that game too to win.
Tate Rodemaker can do that.
No,
Tate Rodemaker can make good throws.
Seen him against a defense in the Power 5, much less a championship game. Do you really think that Tate Rodemaker is going to go out there and light them up?
What did Cardale Jones do when he played Wisconsin?
You cannot.
Why can't I? Because we should pull up his stats.
Are you really comparing Tate Rodemaker to Cardale Jones?
Yeah, because Cardale Jones threw multiple interceptions on that national championship run in multiple games. He didn't play as great as everyone remembers that he did. You know
that the physical traits you could see with Cardale Jones.
I think Tate Rodemaker is more physically gifted than Cardale Jones is. There's no difference between the two of them. You're acting like Tate Rodemaker's a walk-on. He was a 4-star recruit.
Joe, just based off of Cardale Jones's athleticism, he's a better overall prospect.
Again, Cardale Jones on that run did not play throw for 400 yards in those 3 games and play out of his mind. He threw for like
Do
200
you
yards
not
and had a
remember
touchdown and
the
an interception.
Alabama game? How
He had a
you're
touchdown and
aging
an
yourself.
interception in that game.
So a kid that throws an interception in a game's not good. So Tom Brady
That's not what I'm
throws an
saying.
interception in a.
That's
He throws,
not what I'm
hold on.
saying.
He throws an hold on. He throws an interception in a Super Bowl. Tom Brady's ass.
I didn't say Cardale Jones's ass, but we act like Tate Rodemaker has some grand expectation that he has to live up to. All I'm asking for the kid is to not.
One of the worst defenses. He couldn't put a drive together. He missed Keon Coleman in the back of the end zone that my 3 or 4-year-old could make on any livelong day.
I think that you're completely underestimating his capabilities. It was his first game, and we talked about the difficulties that is required to perform well in the swamp. It is such a difficult situation. He got that out of his system. That's completely out of his system. I believe that he can get the job done. Most importantly, because I think that Trey Benson is licking his chops after watching Ray Davis run all over this Louisville run defense that is supposed to be as good as it's been painted.
Everything that you just said literally does not compute. I can't look at you right now, man. I can't do this. Everything that you just said has no bearing on what you've seen from Tate Rodemaker, and you know it. How can you look at Tate Rodemaker and say to yourself that he can get it done, but when every single week that you watched a guy like Jalen Milroe, you said that he didn't have a chance? I saw Tate Rodemaker legitimately go into the swamp and miss wide-ass open dudes. Now, you can say Blakey's on the road. It's his first start. Okay, that's my point. I'm not saying that down the line he's going to be a bad prospect. What I'm saying is I've seen guys like Jane Daniels, who might be your Heisman Trophy winner. I've seen guys like Bo Nix, who might be your Heisman Trophy winner. Michael Penix included. Their first couple of starts were really rough for them. And then you're asking him in his second overall start to play a top 10 rushing defense who we've seen at times play like their hair's on fire. Yes, they lost to a really bad Kentucky team. I understand what you're saying. This matchup of what we saw them try to do last week does not compute. Joe, Florida couldn't stop the run to save their lives down the stretch. They couldn't. Louisville is better at them at doing it in a neutral field. There's a reason why this game's at the spread is at 2.5. Let me tell you why it is. Because nobody in their right mind right now has enough faith that Tate Rodemaker on the road again can do something like this and win the championship. You know that. I know that. Both of our meemals know that. Everybody knows that. So when you say that everything that they're trying to do is what we saw last week in running the football against the ACC's #1 rush defense that they have in that conference, that they're going to be able to do that consistently, I'm sorry, you're wrong.
Blake, here's the one thing, though, that I don't really think that is totally fair to do here with Tate Rodemaker. I understand your skepticism. I'm not saying that he's played perfect football, and I'm not saying that he's going to show up in this game and that he's going to play lights out and that he's going to throw for 300 yards and win them the football game. That's not what I'm saying. I'm simply pointing out the fact that if Devin Leary found a way to win, turning the ball over and making the mistakes that he did, he is not some anemic, incapable quarterback. He's got a good arm. He is a.
What do you think of Sam Hartman?
I think that Sam Hartman is a quarterback who is very experienced, and I think that he played like shit against Louisville.
So if you're going to use the same logic against Devin Leary, you got to use the same. Joe, teams can. I get what you're saying. You can't just look at what happened last week in a rivalry game. You can't.
I'm not just doing that, though. I'm not just doing that. And also, by the way, the same applies here for Tate Rodemaker for playing poorly in a rivalry game. I think that needs to be brought up here. That needs to be discussed. Those things need to be equal. You're reading heavily into the way that he played in a rivalry game. I'm reading heavily into the way that Louisville played in a rivalry game.
Joe,
Wait. My biggest thing here with Louisville, besides that Notre Dame game, yes, the NC State win is nice. Who else have they played a truly dominant, good game against that we can feel confident that this team is as good as they have propped up to be? I said this the whole entire time when they were ranked in the top 10, that they did not belong because they have not done anything that inspires much faith in them for me, that they are as good as being justified as being a top 10 team. I think they are a 15 to 20 quality team, and I don't think they have done enough this entire season to justify the hype that they've been getting. And it applies to the hype that they're getting coming into this game. There is this picture that nationally, I think the media has painted of them that we've all just bought into when the reality is much different. Their offense has disappeared in a bunch of games, as you've talked about. I'm talking about the way they played against NC State. I'm talking about the way that they played against Duke. They have faltered a number of times. They've also almost lost games that they shouldn't have against NC State, against UVA, against Miami. I have to acknowledge the fact
they have 2 losses.
I said they almost lost.
Oh, well, the
I'm
only
saying
thing
that they play.
The only thing that almost works in is horseshoe and hand grenades.
I have seen enough mediocre football from them to know that they're not as good as everyone thinks that they are.
Were you talking about Washington or were you talking about Louisville?
You stink.
All right. I don't disagree with what you're saying, but everybody saw what happened with Florida State last week and said to themselves, hey, man, they are really good at getting Trey Benson the football and him hitting the hole. Joe, the worst thing that they do, literally, the worst thing statistically that Florida State does, what do you think it is?
It's running the football inside.
It's running the football inside. Okay. I understand that worked against Florida. Louisville is not Florida. They're just not. So when you have to lean on that and you already have the skepticism, okay, of both teams play Miami extremely close.
Yeah.
They have both of them have a common opponent that everybody knows and you watch because Louisville almost got beat, right? And Florida State, Miami was hanging around, okay, with Emory Williams and the boys. So I'm just saying, no, I think that there's going to be some chaos this week. I do not see 4 undefeated teams making the playoff. And
I will admit if somebody loses, it's probably Florida State, but I don't think that's going to happen.
There's no, okay, well, 4 teams aren't getting in there. Four undefeated teams aren't getting in there. At least it would be chaotic. At some point, we're going to have a week where nothing but chaos happens. And I think it's this week. We always see it. 4 undefeated teams aren't getting in. It's just, I can't, my mind can't compute that. So we'll see. Now, I will tell you this. Louisville defensively, even with what happened last week, Joe, they're still a top 20 defense. They've been a top 20 defense all season long. They play fast. They play physical. But the number one thing that I think if Florida State wins in this football game, their third down defense is elite. Their defensive line has not been good in the run game. They're 45th in the country in rush defense. But Louisville's biggest weakness and Florida State's biggest strength, third down, Florida State can win that. It will be close because of it, but I'm going to take Louisville by a field goal.
I'm taking the flip. I think Florida State wins this by field goal or a little bit more.
Okay. If Tate Rodemaker throws a touchdown pass in this one, I'll buy you a cookie. All right? Does that sound good? You like cookies?
I know. Don't patronize me. I don't need your cookies. Make sure you check out Bet Online for all of your sports betting needs. For anything that I do betting related, I go on over to betonline.ag and I use promo code BELIEVE50. BetOnline has all of the latest updated odds for the NFL and college football seasons. Anything you need, whether it's futures, live in-game betting, no matter what, your football betting needs are met at BetOnline. And again, make sure you use that promo code BELIEVE50, BLEAV50 to get a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet online, where the game starts.